peace science. It's a science of the last frontier. So what's the last frontier for science? Well, for fundamental science, right, it's a scientific description and study of fundamental interactions. There are two types of fundamental interactions. One is fundamental interactions of nature. The other is fundamental interactions of humans. Now, fundamental interaction of nature have been very well understood and studied extensively in many ways. On the other hand, fundamental interactions of humans, least understood and studied. In fact, I argue there is no science of fundamental interactions of humans until the birth of peace science. So the last frontier is obviously fundamental interactions of humans. All right. Although the very first work of fundamental interactions of humans, scientific study of fundamental interactions of humans, was back in 2000, 24 years ago, published a paper in PAKDD in the name of association rules. So that is what I consider to be the very first scientific study of fundamental interactions of humans. Now, let's take a look at fundamental interactions of nature and fundamental interactions of humans and see any similarity, right, from interaction point of view. Well, the core, I would argue, for core idea, fundamental interaction of nature, is coexistence. Okay, and in particular, it's a neutral coexistence relationship. All right, they are the building blocks of survival of nature and creatures. Why is that? We'll see that in next slide. Right, this is my argument. That's the building block for the survival of creature, neutral coexistence. But you also have a charge coexistence, right? But for coexistence, obviously you have also non-coexistence, right? These are the three key features in fundamental interactions of nature. I would argue fundamental features, but the most important one is neutral coexistence. Now, if we look at the interaction of humans, I would argue the same three: coexistence, and in particular, neutral coexistence is the building blocks for the survival of humans. But also, you have a charge coexistence, and in addition, you have a non-coexistence, right? No coexistence. Three fundamental features that I consider in both interactions of nature and interactions of humans. Now, the difference is here. That's the similarity. The difference is for fundamental interaction of nature, there is no challenge or difficulty, uncertainty to identify what is coexistence, what is non-coexistence, and to differentiate between neutral coexistence and charge coexistence. It's simple. It's straightforward. On the other hand, for fundamental interaction of humans, that's great challenge. That's why you don't have science of fundamental interactions of humans until now, right? What is that challenge? Because it's no longer black and white to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence, between neutral coexistence and charge coexistence. That's the number one challenge for any science to describe fundamental interactions of humans. Well, let's look at the science of interactions, right? It is scientific description of those interactions. When we see the challenge in the interactions that show up, then obviously that's the same challenge for any science to be able to describe that. Now, Look at the fundamental interactions of nature, science for that. 3 clear features. Neutral coexistence. What is that? Atoms, electrically neutral coexistence of electrically charged subatomic particles. They are the building blocks of creatures, including you and me, right? Every single body has that. And on the other hand, for charged coexistence, it's iron, right? It's well known that electrically charged coexistence of electrically charged subatomic particles, right? And third one is non-coexistence. What is that? Free particles, not bound by anything, such as electron. Now, go to the interactions of humans. What's the science there? Description of those interactions, right? Well, for neutral coexistence, it is peace and multipolarity. Those are the key descriptions of neutral coexistence in fundamental interaction of humans. All right, defined as politically neutral coexistence, political charge, beliefs of everything, but they are building blocks of humanity, just like atoms as a building block of creatures, right? Now, second important one, politics. It's a charge coexistence, description of charge coexistence. Politically charged coexistence or politically charged beliefs of everything. All right? And third one for non-coexistence, what's the description in science? Peace science, it's unipolarity. Right? So now we have on the interactions side, we have 3 distinct interactions, neutral coexistence, charge coexistence, and non-coexistence for both interactions of nature and interactions of humans. But for interaction of nature, we have atoms, iron, and electron. Okay? And there is no challenge, no difficulty, no uncertainty to differentiate them. On the other hand, for science of interaction of humans, you have peace or multipolarity for neutral coexistence, and politics for charge coexistence, and unipolarity for non-coexistence. But the challenge is risk of differentiating between coexistence and non-coexistence, and that is solved. That challenge is solved in peace science. That's why peace science is science of fundamental interactions of humans, and no any other science does that. Now, so we'll talk about the science of coexistence and non-coexistence, right? So we look at fundamental interaction of nature. It's about atom versus ion. Means to differentiate between neutral coexistence and charge coexistence. There's no uncertainty, no challenge. And then bound state versus free particle, right? That's bound state including both atom and ion. Free particles like electron. Again, no difficulty to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence. So it means there's no challenge, no uncertainty, no big deal to separate or differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence. Okay? Now, for science, fundamental interaction of humans, right? You have peace versus politics. To differentiate between neutral coexistence and charge coexistence. You have multipolarity versus unipolarity. Basically differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence. The challenge is risk of differentiating between coexistence and non-coexistence. Peace science solved the challenge by risk theory. Now, let's take a look at some of the opportunities for great deal of applications in several different areas. The first one, data science or computer science or any applied science or any science, that involve data. Then I'm sure you'll question, what are you talking about? Data, everybody understand. There's no politics per se, right? Well, that was not well understood. So let's take a look at the challenge of data. What is it, right? So you have two situations, right? Data come from fundamental interaction of nature. As I described, it can be coexistence and non-coexistence, but no big deal. No big deal to differentiate them, to identify which one is which one. It's easy, no challenge, no uncertainty. However, if data comes from fundamental interaction of humans, well, that's the challenge, coexistence and non-coexistence. Unless you have science to adequately handle that, otherwise you don't have science, right? So this is a challenge for any science and not well understood so far until peace science, right? So let's look at the data of human interactions. Now, the characteristics of data, political characteristic data, is not determined by data. It's determined by underlying interactions. If it's captured from human interactions, it's determined by political interaction of humans, right? So that's why it's a data of coexistence and non-coexistence. It's not what you think data is. It's determined by the underlying interactions of humans. So the challenge is, in this case, to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence. Peace science is the only science of coexistence and non-coexistence capture in the form of data. All right. So take a simple example, a well-known example, market basket analysis. Everybody knows that in data mining space, right? It's market data, market basket data. That is the data of interactions between humans. What humans? Shoppers and market owners, shop owners, right? You look at a basket of shopping items, bread, whatever, the milk, bread, and so on. What that reflects is representation of interactions between shoppers and market owners, because that can be, for example, impact by whenever the price determined by the owner, right? So that is representation of human interactions. All right, that is the coexistence fundamental feature of human interactions, coexistence and non-coexistence of human interactions in the form of shopping items in a basket. Okay, so well-known scientific study of this kind of data is called association rules, right? Okay, so back in 2000, that's 24 years ago, I had a paper published, PAKDD. It was about a study about association rules. So in that paper, what I actually proved, two things. First, existing models for association rules. One is conditional confidence, one is chi-square test. Those two models fail to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence. That means they fail to describe interactions of humans by coexistence and non-coexistence. Okay, basically I designed 3 tests and prove to show that any model accurately described human interactions. Well, not necessarily the same terminology back then. Describe coexistence and non-coexistence has to pass 3 tests, and both models pass 2 tests, fail 1 test. And I developed a new model back then. It's called the coexistence rule, in the name of association rule, but now it should be called peace rule for reason we can have a discussion separately. So what it does is able to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence, to be able to describe interaction of humans by coexistence and non-coexistence, and passed all 3 tests. All right. So that was the start. That's why I say now, if I chase what is the start really scientific study of human interactions in data, well, that was the first one. The main takeaway from this is there is future great deal of opportunities for scientific study in a way that be able to, well, at least meet the scientific standard or criteria to be able to differentiate coexistence and non-coexistence within data that come from human interactions that can be in data science, computer science, applied science, all possible areas. Whenever you have data that involve human interactions, right? So that's the key takeaway. Now, second opportunity for peace science or science of fundamental interactions of humans, whether peace science or something else, if you have that meet all scientific standard, doesn't matter. So the second one is international relations. International relations is a big topic, subject, very important one. You have so many universities around the world, so many departments specifically for international relations. But unfortunately, although it's all in the name of science, unfortunately, all existing studies of international relations are political belief of international relations. They are not science. They're not science. But the key takeaway is not whether they are science or not. Takeaway is peace science presents entire new opportunity to conduct scientific description study of international relations in an entirely new world for science. Okay, so now let's take a look at it. Peace science is science of coexistence and non-coexistence. That's the key. That's the key relationship in international relations between countries, right? That's the science, and that's the science for international relations. On the other hand, no study, current study, that describe coexistence and non-coexistence because they cannot differentiate that, right? That's why it's political belief. Now, if you look at the purpose for peace science now, it's really designed for multipolarity. This is an emerging new belief. It's great belief. It's for humanity. But anyway, it's designed for multipolarity and strengthen coexistence building blocks of humans. Remember, talk about neutral coexistence is the key building blocks for both creatures, right, of nature, and as well as for humanity, right? So, on the other hand, you look at the purpose, just assess the purpose of current international relations. It's really designed for unipolarity. That's what conclusion derived from peace science, all right? And what it does is weakening coexistence building blocks of humans. That's no good, right? So again, science of international relations is strengthening coexistence. That's the building block of humans. On the other hand, current international relations, political belief is weakening coexistence, that is building block of humanities. Okay, now take a look at the how it's conducted, the method. We'll talk about the purpose, the difference. Then we'll look at the difference in terms of method to achieve the purpose, right? So in scientific belief or scientific or multipolar international relations, the method is really the key takeaway is peace, multipolarity. What it is really multipolar politics. We'll talk about international relation. It's really meaning international politics, but it's a new way to look at politics. It's multipolar politics. On the other hand, if you look at the current international relations, it's unipolar politics. I'll go a little bit further. Okay, so again, for the multipolar international relations, it's multipolar politics. It means neutral politics. It doesn't mean no politics. It means the politics is designed for multipolar belief. That is, multipolar condition must be met. Political neutral relationship. That's the building block of humans. Okay. Now, going back to the method used in current international relations, the most well-known, at least, if not the most popular one, is realism. Right? Everybody in international relation area knows realism. What it is, from scientific point of view, it's power politics. I think everyone in the realism agree with that. Power politics. But what that really means in the scientific belief, it's unipolar politics rather than multipolar politics advocated, promoted in peace science. Okay, it's a unipolar politics from realism. I would go further. If you look at the sub-belief, the realism is one political belief, but there is within realism there is a belief of offensive realism. That is extreme unipolar politics. What it does, two things, right? Very short. Increase unipolar power. What it does is strengthening unipolarity and decrease multipolar power. What it does is weakening multipolarity, which is really against coexistence, that are fundamental building blocks of humans. Okay? Now, the second one method, liberalism. Liberalism is less political, less unipolar political than realism, because it does consider collaboration, cooperation, right? But it's a political coexistence. It's not political neutral coexistence. So it's not multipolar politics, right? It's a political politics between multipolar and unipolar. And again, it's not for multipolar coexistence. So the takeaway for international relations is peace science presents great opportunity for scientific study of international relations, for the coexistence, which is building block of humans, how to build, strengthen political neutral, which is multipolar coexistence. That's the fundamental building blocks of humans. Now, third one, economics, right? So economics is a fundamental interaction of humans. First of all, if people not recognize that, think about economic activities, but all economic activities are result of coexistence and non-coexistence of humans, or fundamental interaction of humans, just like data, right? If data is really representation of, if it's captured from human interaction, it's representation of human interactions. Same as, economic activities really reflect human interactions. Now, fundamental property, what is it? Again, coexistence and non-coexistence of humans in the form of economic activities, right? So the challenge is the same, to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence of humans in the form of economic activities. When it comes to science of interactions of humans, economics it's called, right? Now, again, the current economics is political belief of economics. It's not science. It's not scientific belief of economics, right? The reason for that is it's unable to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence from interactions of humans. That criteria right there failed, right? And on the other hand, Peace science is the only science to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence of humans, right? In the form of economic coexistence and non-coexistence or economic activities, right? Well, the current economics also actually is a politically biased in favor of one particular political belief of economics. I think, that's clearly the situation, liberal political belief of economics. Now, again, the opportunity for economics is really an open up new direction for what scientific study can be conducted, right, for economic activities. That is result of human interactions. Okay, basically, right now, existing economics is political belief, and you have this opportunity to conduct scientific study of all those interactions of humans in the form of economic activities. Now, the next one is the social sciences. Again, we look at the fundamental interaction of humans in social science. All social activities, right? That's human interactions at the group level, social level. All social activities are a result of coexistence and non-coexistence of humans. Okay, so basically result of human interactions. And coexistence, non-coexistence are fundamental features of human interactions. So it is such closely connected. And again, the fundamental properties is coexistence and non-coexistence of humans in the form of social activities. The same challenge to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence of humans in the form of social activities, that is something has to be solved for any social science in the name of science, right? Peace science, again, is the only science to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence of humans in the form of social coexistence and non-coexistence, right? And that's the qualifier for science or scientific belief of social science. On the other hand, current social science unable to differentiate between coexistence and non-coexistence, their political belief of social science, and politically really biased in favor of liberal political belief of social science. So again, the takeaway is open up peace science, present new opportunity for truly scientific study that's never been done in the past about the social activities, social models, and that as a science of fundamental interaction of humans in the form of social activities. Thank you very much.